Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that some stories and discussions in this episode of Radiant Resilience may touch on sensitive and potentially triggering topics. These may include themes of narcissistic abuse, childhood trauma, postpartum depression, emotional and psychological abuse, relationship betrayal, mental health struggles, including PMDD, depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts and ideation. Our goal is to share real life experiences in a respectful and empathetic manner, offering insights into the complexities of the human spirit and the journey towards resilience. However, we understand that some content might be difficult for listeners. We encourage you to prioritize your well being and discretion when deciding to listen. Please remember this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing assistance, we urge you to seek help from qualified professionals or trusted support systems. Your mental and emotional health is important to us. Thank you for your courage and for joining us in a space of understanding and compassion. Welcome back, everyone, to Radiant Resilience. I'm really excited for this conversation today. I think that many of my women listeners will find this information very helpful today. I have with me Chloe Jimenez Peters. Chloe is a PMDD and perimenopause relationship therapist and narcissistic abuse specialist. Through rapid transformational hypnotherapy and trauma-informed coaching, she helps women worldwide create the loving, harmonious relationships they deserve and transform conflict and heartbreak into a life filled with peace, personal security, purpose, and fulfillment. I love that bio. Welcome, Chloe. Thank you so much for coming on here today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So we were talking a little bit before I recorded, and I think this topic is going to be super interesting. But let's start with a little bit of your background and your personal journey leading into what you're doing to help women today. And I'll let you start wherever you feel like starting.
Thank you. So I have a medical background, so I was a dentist, but I actually just wanted to be a homemaker. And I was with who I call the sperm donor of my children. And that will become clear as to why I call him that. I'd known him since I was 7 years old.
Oh,
So we were childhood friends, somebody I really trusted.
Mm.
And I had two baby boys, 2 and 1. And I found out through his therapist that he was leading a double life.
Oh, wow.
And I was in Belgium. Yeah. I was in Belgium. I'd followed him for work and I was there in Belgium, not speaking the language, not having any friends, just looking after my babies and being the good wife, cooking the meals for when he came home and supporting him in his career. And yeah, he came home one day and said to me, my therapist wants to speak to you. And I was like, why? To cut a long story short, the therapist, who probably shouldn't have said what he said, but wanted to push me to go for something. He just said, you what are you scared of? And I just felt this full body fear. I was like, I'm terrified. What do you mean? What am I scared of? I'm so vulnerable here. I've got 2 babies. They're 2 and 1, and I rely on him. I'm here as the homemaker. I don't earn a living. I gave up my dental career to support him. And so he was saying to me, I'm going to stay in therapy. And because I came from a broken family, was just in denial. I was like, this is not happening. My kids are not going to have a broken family. And so I kept saying, we're going to work through this. This is a midlife crisis. And he kept me hanging on and hanging on. And 3 months later, it was New Year's Eve. And I said, come on, it's time to come home now. And he said, no, I'm not ready. And he was lying by omission. I had no idea that because he said to me he wanted to go and have his own space. And I didn't realize he was actually already moved in with her.
Oh my God.
So when he said, I know, I said, I'm not going to wait any longer. I'm going to go to my house. So in Spain, I had a family home. And so I came here, was where I am now. And when I came back, I found out I was pregnant with my third.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So there I was, brokenhearted, just in complete denial. Wouldn't tell anybody, didn't want to see anybody because I didn't want to explain, because he'd said to me, in 6 months, I'm going to tell you which of the two lives I have chosen.
Oh, okay. And you don't get a say in any of that.
And I was so desperate and so riddled with limiting beliefs and childhood trauma that I didn't even know was there. And I was just desperately hanging on with that abandonment wound, hanging on for dear life, for hope. I wasn't sleeping, going through this pregnancy, not sleeping, obsessing over them on social media, trying to find out information. Oh, it was horrendous. Really long, painful months I went through, just wishing and praying. And then he didn't even bother to ring me on that day to tell me I had to ring him. He'd agreed 1st of June, there's a month until I'm due to have my baby. And I had to ring him, and he just went no. And I'd been hanging on for 6 months, just hoping, praying, thinking he's seeing 2 therapists. But of course, it was all lies, and I wanted to buy into them. I was hanging on for dear life. Yeah, horrendous.
Oh.
And I just remember sitting on my living room sofa, on my green sofa, watching my boys play on the other green sofa, and in this kind of dissociated trance, and looking at them, and these thoughts just going through my head. And this thought went through my head, and it was, who's going to want you with 3 babies? What will become of your life? And right there in that moment, it was like, don't you dare. I could see the trajectory of their life with me believing and thinking like that. And then I could also see, right now, you have choice, and you have a choice to believe that you're a wonderful package. And it actually hit a nerve with me, because I'd overheard my mom, as a single mom in her 20s, saying, who's going to want me with 2 kids? And so my misperception of a child, I'd concluded as a kid that I was a burden to my mum's happiness. And I just thought, you're not doing this to these kids. There's no way. You have to do whatever it takes for them to know that they're an absolute gift of life, and that they are worthy, and that amazing things are coming to us. And I just had to lock into that. I didn't know how, I didn't know why. I just had to choose that belief. And it was that moment where I realized I had choice, and the choice was going to change the trajectory of not just my life, but their life. And so I went down a rabbit hole of listening to the law of attraction, abundance meditations, and I started to really learn about subconscious blueprints and how the subconscious mind works. And it really excited me, because this is not something we get taught at med school. I wanted to be, when I was at med school, I was really like, do I want to be a plastic surgeon, or do I want to be a dentist? And when I look at that, it's quite interesting, because I wanted to be a plastic surgeon because my belief was, if I can make people happy with their appearance, then they'll be happy. And then the dentist thing was, I had such a fear of dentists when I was a kid. It was like, I just want to be the kind of person that prevents people having that experience that I had. So it was always to free people from pain, and always to make people happy. My vocation, my life purpose, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it for a long time, until the universe made me incredibly uncomfortable. And I think the reason I couldn't see it was because I'd grown up with my dad, who had his own fears projecting onto us, giving it, when you grow up, you'll be a lawyer or a doctor. And so I never gave myself space to really feel into what it was that I was here to do. But as I went down this rabbit hole of personal growth, and I was so excited. I just felt so excited by the potential. Something lit up in me, and I was like, oh my God, this is where the magic is. And then this opportunity came up to study rapid transformational therapy. And I was like, I'm sold. This is what I should have always been doing. And it was just so miraculous and so rapid. And I was like, this is it. Because I had suffered with PMDD in my teens and my 20s with depression. I was diagnosed with clinical depression when I was 17. They put me on antidepressants. And the doctor just said to me, you've got a chemical imbalance. And so, and now I know, knowing what I know about depression and actually the subconscious beliefs that tend to come up in depression, and they are, you're wrong, you're bad, there's something wrong with you. And I formed these because my dad was saying, you'll be a lawyer, you'll be a dentist. And so my childhood conclusion was, there must be something wrong with me then. If I need to be this in order to be loved, what must be wrong with me? And these misperceptions, these subconscious programs that we pick up, keeping us in, well, depression is freeze response. So it's like the ultimate rejection of self, isn't it? It's I'm wrong, I'm bad at a subconscious level. And so then once I got into the rapid transformational therapy, I learned that people were being set free from premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And I learned that's what I actually had, because I was diagnosed in my teens with chronic fatigue, polycystic ovaries, depression, everything except PMDD, because they didn't know what it was. So then I got really passionate about it, and I started really understanding the holistic side of things and how powerful this work is, and how actually now I just see it as a calling. You know, the women that I work with tend to be the empaths, the creatives, the highly sensitive people that have picked up misperceptions or they've experienced trauma that they know of, and that those beliefs are creating havoc with their nervous system, right? Because our beliefs are creating our perception. And and the neuroception as well. Our nervous system is built in our childhood. So we've got the neuroception and the perception. And that is responsible for activating the nervous system into fight or flight, and then freeze. When we reach the threshold of fight or flight, we're going to freeze. And so all of these symptoms are found in these two stress responses. And obviously, chronic activation of these stress responses creates illness, because you're starving vital organs of the nutrients and the oxygen and everything they need to function correctly. And yeah, miracles were just popping off. And then my clients started to say, no, you should do a program for perimenopause, because it's the same kind. I don't know if this is PMDD or perimenopause, and it doesn't matter. We've still got it's coming up. It's coming up for you to transform. And it was like, wow, these people are coming to me to free themselves from PMDD, but what they're actually getting is they're leaving these narcissistic relationships behind that they didn't even know were narcissistic. They're understanding the family dynamics that had them accepting less than. They're getting pay rises. They're starting their own businesses. Their relationships are changing with their children. They're more present. They've got this inner peace. They've got this insecurity about themselves that they just hadn't had before. And they were saying this is like a rebirth. So I was like, wow, this really must be a calling then. This is what the hormones, because the patriarchal conditioning makes us hate on our hormones, right?
Yes.
And actually, they're just there to give us this inward focus in those last 2 weeks, the inward focus, and we go in. And what happens is, when we go to this inward focus, is we come face to face with all the crap that we've picked up, all of the misperceptions, all of the limiting beliefs. And of course, the nervous system goes into, we dissociate, we go into deep depression, or we're raging. And it's those wounds that come to the surface. It's like a thinning of the veil. But this is what we're supposed to turn into gold, girls.
Yeah. For those who are listening who don't know what PMDD is, can you talk a little bit about what it is and who it affects and what symptoms to look for and stuff like that?
Yeah, so PMDD is like PMS on steroids. People experience suicide ideation. It's horrendous. They feel like they're going absolutely crazy. Some people feel like they're in this fight or flight rage for a few days, and then maybe they'll just dip into the freeze response for the last few days until they start bleeding. It's different for everybody. Everybody experiences differently, right? Because the blueprint that each person has is somewhat personal. And what's interesting is that it can come on at any time in your life, which I find fascinating. For me, it came on with my menstrual cycle as a teenager.
Okay.
For a lot of women, it comes with child after having children.
Okay.
And then for some, maybe it comes more sort of perimenopause. And I just think, wow, that's your soul calling you to expand into your potential so that you can hold what you're asking to receive, like motherhood. In order to be the mother that I want to be, I've got to clear this stuff up. I've got to transform it. And the type of people it affects, in my experience, a lot of highly sensitive people. If you've heard of the highly sensitive person, so a lot of highly sensitive person, we just have this gene that makes us more sensitive, and it's a wonderful thing. But we've got to pay attention to taking care of the stuff that comes up for us, and really understand ourselves. I think for me, reading about a highly sensitive person was really validating, and I really released a lot. So shed a lot of tears, understanding, that's why I wasn't understood as a child. A lot of us in childhood, we get this stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about, because we feel deeply, we process things deeply. And I needed more time in exams, and I felt frustrated about that. I felt different. So I think it's really validating when you really understand about the highly sensitive person. A lot of people don't know they are a highly sensitive person until they come to work with me, and then they just feel so validated understanding that. They tend to be healers, the creatives, the PMDD clients that come to me, the healers, the creatives, the doctors and nurses, the carers of the world, the empaths. They've not been seeing themselves, honoring themselves. They have these beliefs: I don't matter, what I want doesn't matter. All of this stuff that really stops them from really stepping into their full potential and living the life that they desire deep down, if they really gave themselves that opportunity to come first, actually.
Oh, yes. Perimenopause is something I'm sure most people have heard of, but how does that differ from regular menopause?
So for me, it's the same. So the perimenopause is the lead up to your last period, isn't it? And so it's all this, so the veil is thinning on your past trauma that you're being called to alchemize, to transmute, transform. So you will get all of these kind of symptoms that people would get with PMS or with PMDD. They're labels. I know in Chinese medicine, perimenopause is not even a thing, is it?
Yeah, we like to put labels on things.
We like to put labels, and it can be validating. And I remember when I was diagnosed with depression, it felt really validating. It was like, I knew there was something wrong with me. Like, finally. But I bought into that serotonin model for decades. And of course, then I went to medical school and I was taught more of it. And it was like, and now it's like, what? That was never even proven. It was just a hypothesis. So I'm really excited to have actually woken up and be able to do the work that I do now. And if I'd have stayed in that relationship that I was in, that I was willing and wishing and praying to be able to fix, then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, and I would be a very different person. And so it's like the universe had to make me really uncomfortable in order for me to wake up.
I hate it, but love it at the same time, that the universe has to make us all uncomfortable at some point to grow, right? We all grow the most. We have those biggest growth periods in those moments of our lives, which is rough, but it's also necessary. And I think a lot of people that I've interviewed on this podcast wouldn't go back and change what happened to them, because it did lead them to where they are now.
Oh my God. And for me, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And I wish I could go back and tell that version of me, because I remember thinking, this is worse than when my dad died. This is like a grieving of a death again. This is horrendous. That year was just torturous. But now I am so grateful for it. I am so grateful, because I love my life. I love what I do. And I created a business doing purpose work, and it doesn't feel like work. And I have my 3 babies at home and I work around them and I'm present for them. And like it just becomes so like personal growth and inner peace are my top values. Like I just want more and just keep expanding into it. I love that.
And it's so hard when you're in the moment, right? When you're in those deep, dark places, it's so hard to see that there will be another side, that there will be a happy ending here in a different way, not maybe than the way you thought it was going to be, but it's there and you'll get there, but it takes so much hard work and healing to get to that. I think when you're in the middle of it, it's so hard to believe.
Yeah. And now knowing what I know, when these things happen, I'm able to really hold it. I love when something happens and I go, oh my God, my nervous system in that past version of me would have reacted totally differently. That was, I'm so grateful for where I am, that I'm able to handle stuff with more resilience. And now I know that when this shit happens, this is temporary and it's coming to serve you. And you don't need to know how it's coming to serve you, but you just know, because this is what life does. Life is here to challenge us, and our job is to grow from it. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful when you understand it like that.
Yeah. You were telling me a little bit about how PMDD and perimenopause, you were doing the work with that and it linked up to narcissistic abuse in people's pasts while you were working through this stuff. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was interesting because actually my clients would say, just when they had done the first session, they go, do you know what? I just realized my mum was a narcissist and I'd never realized that before.
So can you, before
And
we get too much into it, explain what a narcissist is for those listening that may not know?
okay, a narcissist is somebody who in childhood has locked into a persona, a way of being, and that it's so strong, this persona, this mask, that doesn't matter how much we're talking about NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. In this case, it's a personality disorder, and it doesn't matter how much therapy these people do, they just don't have the capacity to change, because for their own safety, because of their own trauma, they've locked in so strongly to this way of being that they can't introspect and take responsibility for their stuff. And so the relationship becomes a relationship with a narcissist becomes very toxic, very abusive, and we tend to become magnets for these kinds of people because of the childhood, the attachment styles, the childhood beliefs that we picked up. And so when we start looking at the root cause of our symptoms and we start transmuting and transforming all of this old stuff, we start to see life through different lenses with a new perspective. And so people were waking up to the fact that their parents or their grandparents might have been narcissistic, and actually that their current relationships were, and they'd come out of the treatment with clarity, either okay, it was my toxic behavior because of my insecurities, or he's narcissistic and I'm worthy of more, and so I'm letting this go. And they would let the relationship go because they'd realized what they'd been normalizing as love, right? Because we're forming our perception of love in childhood. So I was just coming across so much narcissistic trauma in the transformational hypnotherapy sessions. And I was like, and this opportunity came up to study this amazing program, certification in narcissistic trauma-informed coaching, which is so deep in its teachings, and I loved it because it's super scientific. She also has a medical background, so I jumped into that, and I've absolutely loved work, because I think that that's our greatest issue in life, right? Yeah, I'm suffering. Yeah, I've got anxiety and I'm sad and I'm shut down, I'm dissociated, but my children are suffering. My partner and my relationship is suffering. And so the relationship side of the work really lit me up, and I love that. And also it's my story, isn't it? So you settled for less. You settled for somebody who is emotionally unavailable. You settled for somebody who lied by omission and actually was, yeah, you were going to settle for that for the rest of your life. And so I want to wake women up to their worth and their power, and actually make them magnets for everything that they deserve and they desire.
I love that.
So yeah, that's how I got into that.
So now, is that mostly what are you still working? You're still working with people with PMD, perimenopause, but then also working through the narcissistic abuse.
So when people come to me and they start work with me, if they say if they've got PMDD or perimenopause symptoms, they go through my program, which is 8 weeks. It's a one-to-one program with me, and they have rapid transformational therapy. It's like a 2 hour, each session is like a 2 hour hypnotherapy session where we do all the inner child work, we do regression inner child work, we do parts therapy, and it is so powerful. And then they go away from that 2 hour session with a recording with the new beliefs that we've pulled out the old beliefs in the session, but I want them to rewire the new beliefs. So they listen to that for 21 days every day, just this 15-minute recording, just to get the neural pathways really strong, really cemented. So we do 2 rounds of that to get them out of the freeze response symptoms, to get them out of the fight or flight response symptoms. We do metacognitive therapy to get in control of their thoughts. We learn polyvagal tools to start reshaping the nervous system. And there's actually video lessons for these tools so they can come back to them time and time again. But we do the therapy on a one-to-one. So that's my 8-week program, Wounds into Wings. And that is like a radical awakening. It's really transformational. And then I have clients that after that, they want to continue the coaching. They want to really continue to have the support, and they can have the extra life coaching with me, which is trauma-informed coaching. But the transformational work is really done in the Wounds into Wings program, the one-to-one program, to get rid of those symptoms and transform the root of them into an amazing blueprint to set you on your way.
Yeah, it takes time to do all that stuff, right? It's not something that can be done in like a one session kind of thing. You have to work through that for a while.
It's amazing with rapid transformational therapy. And that's what attracted me to it, because when I was diagnosed with depression, I'd had weekly counseling, and it just felt like a waste of time. And the beauty about using hypnotherapy for doing the work is that you go directly to the subconscious imprint that you don't know with your conscious mind, because you can't access it. And you're able to do the root cause resolution in that session. So you make it conscious, you do the root cause resolution, and it really is rapid. For me, it's, you wouldn't go to the dentist and say, I've got toothache, and they say, come back next week and we'll try and remove it again. You want the pain taking out. And so this is what we do with the RTT. It's incredible. And people say at the end of the 8 weeks, they'll go, I'm worried it feels too good to be true. Like, I'm worried that I'm gonna relapse. And I'm like, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of your life now, because you've got the new blueprint, you are free from those symptoms. And now you're just going to exercise the muscles of self-love, self-trust, tuning into your intuition, all those lessons that you've learned with me, you're going to just strengthen those muscles more. And it's just the beginning. So it doesn't have to take long. And so in 8 weeks, we do 2 hypnotherapy sessions. And that really is enough to get rid of the PMDD symptoms that come up. I like to move people out of freeze response first, and then we'll deal with the fight or flight symptoms for the next half of the program. But it's incredible work.
Yeah, I bet. Do you find that sometimes it's hard to crack people open?
No, because that's the beauty of the hypnotic brain states. They go inward, and we say, whatever comes up, whatever comes to mind, whatever you feel, we're working with, that's what needs to come up. And often people go back to the womb, they go back to being in the birth canal, they go back to scenes that they hadn't known consciously. They uncover stuff that has been holding them back and keeping them small. And if we knew what was wrong with us, people always used to say to me, what have you got to be depressed about? And I'm like, I don't know. And that felt like such a burden for people. Like, why expecting me to know why I'm depressed? If I knew, then I wouldn't be depressed, right? The problem is subconscious. The problem is always subconscious. Otherwise, we wouldn't be suffering. So we've got to go to the subconscious root, and your subconscious mind has the answer.
What exactly is a hypnotherapy session like, for if anybody's listening that's never done hypnotherapy before? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so traditional hypnotherapy is different to the hypnotherapy that we're talking about. So traditional hypnotherapy, we put you into a slower brain state. You are going, so people are often worried about the hypnosis because we grew up probably watching stage hypnotists making people cluck like a chicken and like a dog. So it's like, I'm going to be out of control. And actually, you're in more control because it's this inward focus and this, you just have more awareness of your inner world. You have access to your inner world. And it's really like a meditative state. And you're in and out of it every day. And it's a natural brain state. So why not access it for therapeutic reasons? Traditional hypnotherapy, they put you into this state and then they will give you suggestions for you to take on, right? So the new beliefs for you to take on. But the mind can't hold conflicting beliefs. So you have to get to the conflicting belief first and pull the weed out. So you've got to find the mutation, take it out and go, can you see now as your higher self, that child made a belief that is, and you see it, that could never be true. It's a lie, but I've been believing it forever because a child, it's the inner child work that is really so powerful. So the rapid transformational hypnotherapy is 2 hours. So we do the induction and then we move straight into regression. We go, what symptom do you want to work on? Let's go to the depression first. And we ask the mind to show us scenes, memories, times in your life, all to do with the root cause of the depression. And your mind will just show you, your mind will go back to a time in your life, a memory, a scene. And then it's my job as the practitioner to really dig around and like, how are you feeling? You're 7 years old and your father's outside kicking bins around, and what is it you're feeling? And so because that's what matters, is the feeling of the child. We want to get into the feeling of the child. And then from the feeling, we can extract the beliefs that that child is making in that moment. So we do that. We do regression 3 or 4 times, going back to 3 or 4 different times in your life. And you can see the beliefs in each scene, they all match. So you can see very clearly that your subconscious mind is showing you these same beliefs in these 3 scenes that are the root cause. And so then we do all the reframing tools. And then we use another tool that's really powerful, especially for physical issues, which is the parts therapy, because these things are parts in internal family systems, these parts that they come to protect you. The depression comes to shut you down. Anxiety has you on high alert so that you're to protect you from what might happen, because you're perceiving that you're helpless. Well, you're not helpless because you're not a helpless child anymore. So we do all of this reframing and upgrade the inner child in this session. And in the hypnotic brain state, it's like you're in this portal of infinite resources. That's what it's like in hypnosis, where you get to try on new ways of seeing things, new ways of seeing yourself, new ways of seeing the world. And of course, you change your perception in this 2-hour session, and you just go out there, different version of you, actually. And then you go away with recording with the new beliefs that have replaced the old uprooted beliefs. That's it in a nutshell. but it's very
Oh, that's,
powerful.
that's a big nutshell. But I love it. Thank you for sharing that because I think, like you said, people are a little bit afraid of the hypnotherapy stuff. So to dive a little bit deeper into what that looks like is probably nice for people to hear. When you began your healing journey, did you do a lot of these things as well?
Yeah, when I was training, I had to do a lot of it, and
Sure.
so I was transforming as I was training, which is
Mm.
really cool.
So did you start
And
training for this right after, right when you decided to begin your healing journey?
no, I went down a rabbit hole of Bob Proctor. I loved the whole law of attraction and Bob Proctor, and I could feel like this energy inside me that was like just this, the frequency just went too like higher than I'd ever experienced it. So that I really loved that. And it was through that, through his book, You Were Born Rich, I listened to it 3 times in 1 month.
Oh,
And
wow.
I really set out because my ex stopped sending child support. So
Mm.
then I was like, okay, so now I'm okay in that I feel enough for my children and I've got all this work that I'm doing on myself. But now I need to be financially secure for my children and provide for them because I had them at private school and I was just like, no money really plays havoc with your nervous system. It doesn't matter how much work you've done on yourself, but like
Yeah.
that scarcity. And we're just so riddled with patriarchal conditioning. So it wasn't, then that's why I kept just listening to the abundance meditations. I was like, I've got to make something happen. I don't want to be in a dental clinic 10 hours a day when I've got 3 babies at home under 3 years old. Something has to come. And I was just like believing and trusting and really doing this Bob Proctor stuff. And then an advert with Marissa Peer, who's the founder of RCT, came up and just, I was like, that's it. That's what I was always supposed to do.
Mm.
It wasn't until I was in dire straits financially that I had to go and actually find what I'm here to do. And I'm really grateful for it
Mm.
because I couldn't have dreamt of doing something like this that doesn't feel like work that I'm so passionate about.
That's amazing. How long have you been doing it now?
5 years.
Okay,
5 years.
nice.
Yeah.
Talk about transmuting. I think that's a term that maybe some of the listeners don't understand necessarily. Everybody understands transformational, but what does transmuting mean?
Yeah, so when I say transmuting, I'm really thinking about the parts therapy that we do in the hypnotic brain state because people, when we're doing the work, people go into themselves and find the energy that is creating the issue, and they will describe it. This is one of the favorite things for most people. They'll describe the shape of it, they'll describe what it looks like, where it is, what it's doing for them. And then when we find out what it's doing for them, and they're able to go, oh, I don't need you to do that for me anymore. I don't need you to protect me in that way. You're actually ruining my life.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so then they literally transmute the shape of it.
Okay.
They either visualize it leaving their body. Sometimes it doesn't want to go, so they have to give it a new role. So that say
Mm.
they either let it go because it's a redundant energy and it will just transmute into another one because energy can't be destroyed. It will change into another energy, but it leaves them, leaves their energetic body, or they will transform it. They will change its shape and its role and ask it to do a more supportive role as the adult for the adult self rather than this protective thing for the child that decided was a good idea for it that's actually
Mhm.
ruining your adult life.
Ugh. So then you put on here how transmitting the root of your symptoms makes you the most conscious parent. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, because this was what was so important for me, right? I
Mhm.
was like, God, my babies only have me. They are looking at me. Like, and obviously I know about the importance of the mirror neurons and stuff. So I really had to show up. I had to be patient. I had to be present. I had to meet their needs. And in that period of being abandoned and helpless and heartbroken, I wasn't present. Yes, I was physically with them, but I was in my head, like just obsessing. And I wasn't present for my little babies. And I was like, yeah, snap out of it. And actually, that's one of the biggest pain points with my PMDD and perimenopause ladies, that they rage at their kids when they're in those horrible days, or they're not present because they're dissociated. And it really pains them. It really pains them. And so when you do your own inner child work, actually, most people come out and go, oh God, I'm really worried that I've messed my kids up now, because you get such a deep understanding of the importance of the conscious parenting, because you've just reparented your own. And so people go, oh my God, I'm so worried that I fucked up my kids. And I'm like, we're all doing the best with the tools that we have, and this is their journey too. You haven't. And the fact that you're aware of it, and the fact that you will apologize, because actually most of us from our generation didn't get apologized to by our parents, and that's part of the problem. It's once they suddenly make the unconscious conscious and become more conscious parents, they can start judging themselves for past behaviors, but you've got to let that go, because that's not serving anyone. And just realize, this is part of the human experience. We're all doing the best we possibly can, even our parents. And nobody wakes up and says, today I'm gonna mess up my kid. Nobody does that. So we're all doing the best we can. And you've got to do a lot of self-forgiveness, which is something else that I teach that is absolutely imperative.
Yeah. What about transmuting the subconscious root of your symptoms to unlock your soul purpose?
Oh, this is what really excites me, because with all these limiting beliefs, we are so locked into, subconsciously, we're not even aware of it. What I want doesn't matter. What I want isn't available to me. So there's really only three things really wrong with us when it comes down to it. One is I'm not enough. Two is I'm different, don't belong. And three is it's not available to me, whether it be love, whether it be success. And so everything boils down to that. And actually, it's not available to me is quite a big one. Because you learn in childhood, what I want isn't available to me. Love isn't available to me. What I want isn't available to me. And we put on these blinkers, and we're just going through life with blinkers. And this is what this work does is I have choice. Now I have choice. Everything's available to me. And part of this work is learning to put yourself first, because the queen of the home
for
sets
women
the
to do.
Exactly. And it's really challenging when you're a mum, because you're given this baby you've got to keep alive, and actually this baby's needs comes first. But there has to be a point where you go, do you know what? The queen of the home sets the tone. In order for me to be the best mum, I have to look after me first. And it's starting to prioritize your feelings, your needs, your desire. And when you transform those limiting beliefs, or the root of the trauma, when you transmute the trauma, you start to wake up to things you didn't even remember you liked, because we forget who we are and what we like. And that's got a big impact on finding your soul purpose. I finished working with a girl last week, and she was working in a bar when we started working together, and hated the job and didn't know what she was going to do, but was so shut down with depression, severe depression, that she just didn't know what to do with her life. And by the end of the 8 weeks, she was so excited about starting up a business in landscape gardening, which is what she loved, but she hadn't given herself permission. This is what just kept happening. I started the program wanting to free people from symptoms, but what was happening was they were turning their wounds into wings. There were people coming out going, do you know what? Think I want to do purpose work now. A lot of the women I was working with wanted to go on and study RTT. I've had 10 women go off and study RTT after they've worked with me. So that's it's what you get, and you don't even know you're coming for it. That's the thing.
That's amazing. That has to feel so good to help people heal and have these epiphanies and realize their full potential, because I think a lot of us get stuck in our society and the day to day. And I've had a lot of friends that have lost themselves to motherhood as well. And it was really hard to come back from, or they didn't. And then I think you hit that empty nester stage, and then you're forced to face that later on in life. So what do you have to say to women who are maybe stuck in that they've lost themselves to motherhood?
I mean, this must happen. I mean, I could definitely identify with that. When what happened to me and my friend said to me, we're in South Africa on holiday for a month, just come for a few days. And I just did. I called my family, they stayed with the babies, and I went and I was like, God, this is like the fun, Chloe. I'm remembering who I am because you're so in survival mode, trying to you're learning how to look after these babies, and you're on this treadmill, and I wouldn't have done that if what happened hadn't have happened. And I went and I was like, oh, this is what I used to be. But we forget that, don't we? We just deny ourselves that. We forget. So what would I say to women? That one thing is really start changing your self-talk and start speaking to yourself like you would speak to your newborn baby, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Start nurturing your inner child, just because that's the life changer, changing your self-talk. And actually, if you think you're actually speaking to your inner child, like absolute, even when it comes to you drop something and you're frustrated, oh, you fucking idiot. And that was my norm. That's how I would speak to myself. And I do not do that now. You've got to start going, oh, you silly Billy. Oh, wow. I need to just check in with myself. Just speak to yourself like you would speak to your newborn baby, the thing that you love most in the world. And you've got to have a gatekeeper in your mind that is like, oh, that was one of those thoughts again. No, we're not doing that. Start to become your greatest cheerleader, at least in that respect, at least with your self-talk. That changes everything.
Self-talk is hard. I think I'm a people pleaser. And so I think that's even worse in me personally, just because I'm like, oh, I hurt that person's feelings, or I did this, or I berate myself in a lot of situations. I'm getting better at that. I'm working on it. But I do find that my self-talk is terrible just because I've been a people pleaser my whole life.
So ask yourself, whose voice is that? Because you weren't born with that judgmental voice.
Yeah.
And often it's one of your parents or a teacher or somebody, and it's like protecting you from being hurt by anybody else. If I speak to myself like crap, I punish myself first, then they can't hurt me because I've done it first. And then at least I can control it. At least I'm in my power then.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, wow. I love this conversation, Chloe. Thank you so much for everything you've shared. Do you have any final parting words for my audience?
If you're feeling like this resonates and you're ready to start doing the work, then you can book a free 15-minute call with me and we'll start mapping out your healing journey and seeing if we're the right fit for one another. And you only have this life once. And so everything that is coming up for you, everything that your hormones are showing you, just lean into it, because it's stuff that is, you're being called to look at it and to transform it and really step up into your potential and create the incredible life that you're meant for.
Thank you so much. We will link all of the ways to get a hold of you and work with you in the show notes. But thank you so much for this conversation. I really have enjoyed it. And I've learned a lot too. So I hope my listeners have as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tawny. Thanks for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Yes. All right. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.